So what we'll be doing is, in brief, talking about the Agile and the Scrum for engineers like you. And in terms of, what are the various elements of Agile you would be understanding. I'll also look into the various 4 values of Agile methodology, briefly explain you the Scrum framework, which is the process framework. I'll also take you through the other element of how do you manage an entire project on Agile framework. How do you manage the carry forwards and the change management in any project in terms of requirements? And finally, how do you break down your 16-week projects applying these principles of Agile framework so that you not only learn the internship from a technology perspective, you'll also learn from the Agile methodology perspective. Thirumala, next slide, please. The next one. I have covered yeah. So, we all are used to a traditional model of software development where the focus was more on documentation. But over the last, decade to 15 years, whenever this whole, the internet-based applications have started, all the modern technologies have come into the enterprise world and to the mobile app world. The focus has shifted more towards a working software and not necessarily on the documentation. That doesn't mean that there is no documentation, but there is documentation, but not to an extent like any waterfall model or any other model where the documentation was very heavy. The focus has shifted towards making the software work the way it is intended to be working. So next slide, please. So quickly, we'll go through the difference between the traditional models and the Agile model. The traditional model was a single one-way traffic. One phase leads to another. That means unless you complete the requirement phase, you cannot get into the design phase. Unless you complete the design phase, you cannot get into the development phase. Unless you complete the development phase, you cannot get into the testing phase, and goes on. It was a unidirectional flow like a waterfall. The water doesn't go the reverse. There is no feedback. There is no going back once the process has started. You cannot look into requirements when the design has started. You cannot look into design when the development has started. You cannot look into development when the testing has started. But that puts a lot of constraints on the requirements and the business relevance of the project. Suppose you are doing a project for 3 months and 6 months. The customer gets to see the project only after 3 months or 6 months. By the time the project is delivered, the entire requirement scenario and the business scenario would have completely changed. The customer will end up having a project which has far too less relevance in the industry than what was intended. And what do you do with the project? That is where, the modern methodologies of Agile plays a role. Agile is very iterative. Break down the entire project into small deliverables. Small deliverables. Let the consumer start consuming that part of the entire project, and you go on integrating it as the project gets developed. I'll give you a simple analogy in a day-to-day life. Suppose you are building a 3-storied house with 4 bedrooms. In a classical waterfall model, you can only do your housewarming ceremony once the house is ready. But by the time you start occupying the house, a lot has changed. You would have seen many more, you know, images in Pinterest or your friends' houses or somewhere else. You have gone and found a beautiful house. You wanted those to be implemented in your house, but your house is already ready. You can't do it. There's no way you could have made the changes. In an agile world, what happens if you start living once your ground floor is ready? Your kitchen is ready, one bedroom is ready, one living room is ready, you have your TV to watch your IPL matches. Let the rest of the house, the rest of the floors continue to be built over the next 1 year. But it doesn't stop you from living. Yes, there will be some inconveniences, but you can start living in. And you can also start implementing any changes as long as it doesn't impact the overall timeline and the cost of the project. So like this, this is one way of looking at from an agile methodology where you build as you consume and you consume as you build. It gives an opportunity for you to constantly upgrade the requirements depending upon the business realities and changes happening in the market. Not necessarily the business changes. It could be a new technology which is there in the market, and that actually helps you to build the project in much faster time. Start implementing it. So your ability to break down the entire project into small deliverables which are easily managed, easily understood, and can easily be delivered to the customer for consumption. Customer can start consuming and start giving you feedback which can be implemented in the next version or in the next release. So that is the beauty of having an agile, which is a new age philosophy for the new age development and the new age technologies. Okay. Next slide, please. So this is how, I would see agile as a new methodology, which is pretty much in vogue in most of the enterprise as well as the user-based projects. Now, agile has a certain disciplines and certain values to be followed. It imparts 4 values which are absolutely important for every one of you to be aware of it. The first value is it's all about individuals and interactions, not about documentation. That means everything regarding the project in terms of the functional and the non-functional requirements, the design, the development, the testing, everything is done in a room across the table, discussing it between the team members and getting it done then and there. Rather than, one guy writing a document, the document would be reviewed, then passed on to the next person, then passed on to the next person, then passed on to the next person. That is extremely linear, non-interactive, no feedback, not iterative, very time consuming and very egoistic. Today, it's all about human interactions at work. Then and there, you discuss it, close it, accept it, if possible, document it in a small form and move on to the next phase. The second value, which is again the, an absolute must in an agile development, is focus on the working software rather than on the documentation. Every team member in an agile project is focused on how do I get this project up and running? How do I make this application 100% functional and to the requirement? How do I make this project delivered on time, cost, and functionalities and quality, irrespective of the documentation? That doesn't mean that documentation is not required. It is required, but that is not the priority. The priority is all about delivering a working software, and everybody is focused on that. The third is customer collaboration. Customer has an integral role to play in case of an agile world and in case of an agile manifesto. In the waterfall model, the role of the customer stops once the requirements are done. The customer comes back only when there is an integration testing or a user acceptance testing. But in case of agile methodology, I know cases where customer is involved almost on a daily basis. Customer is also a part of the team because customer is a very important stakeholder in the project. It's not that you give an order and come back after 3 months, 6 months and consuming whatever has been delivered. Customer is an integral entity where he has a control on the functional, the non-functional requirements, and also I would say the prioritization of the various releases in the project. Sometimes what happens is customer wants a particular feature to be released immediately rather than waiting after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So that flexibility of releases and the functionalities to be deployed has the ability of the customer to play a role in the project. And finally, the last value is again linked with the previous value, your ability to adapt and accommodate the various changes in the project. You're not rigid. You're not saying it can't be done. You allow the changes as long as the overall structure of the project within the timeline and the cost is not impacted. Wherever there is a significant change in the project because of a new requirement or a modification, anyway, you have the customer in the project team talking to you almost on a daily basis. I'll show you how the communication happens. But when you have an open channel communications with the customer, you can convince the customer and say, let's not accept this now or let's accept it now. The customer is aware of your day-to-day challenges and they have the empathy to the various changes, either positive changes or not so positive changes. Okay. So the Agile Manifesto becomes the heart and soul of the methodology, which is not only a software methodology, but it's also a framework for everybody to be equal in a project rather than having a hierarchical structure in a waterfall model. So in waterfall models, we have the project manager, the technology leads, the senior leads, the junior leads, the developers. In Agile methodology, it's a flat organization. And I will show you how that organization works in my next slide. Next slide, please. So you have the Agile as a methodology, Agile as a way of life, and Agile as a framework in terms of interaction between the customers and the project team members. So how does an Agile framework work? The Agile methodology works under a framework what is called as a Scrum. Scrum is a framework which has 3 elements. The 3 elements are just 3 roles. Second, how do these roles interact with each other? The third element of a Scrum is what is documented. So the Scrum has 3 roles. The first is a project owner. The project owner is an individual who has been nominated within the project, pretty much the senior most person who has a very strong domain and technology skills, who can play the role of a customer within the project. That means the person plays the role of a customer and be the custodian of the project. The second is the Scrum Master, pretty much the orchestrator of the entire symphony, someone who doesn't play any instrument, but is the person which synchronizes and orchestrates every member of the project towards a single unified goal of delivering a working product. A Scrum Master also facilitates the process management, takes care of all the constraints in the project, represents the team in front of the customer, stand-ups for the team in case of any challenges. The team owner is actually the Scrum Master in terms of the day-to-day life of a project. And finally, you have the development team. Most of the team members are full stack developers. That means they have skills right from requirements to design to architecture to development to testing to integration to cloud migration, everything. They are aware of it. They can straddle between requirements to design, design to development, development to requirements to testing. They are capable and skilled enough to do multitasking. So the product owner, the scrum master, and the development team are the three roles in any agile project. So they know for the hierarchy. Everybody is same in a development team. And to some extent, even the scrum master also becomes a development team wherever required, because the person comes with a lot of experience. What does this scrum team does? They get into various activities from planning to execution. They do sprint planning. That means like an average a milestone, a deliverable with a clear start and an end date. They do daily stand-up meetings. That means the entire teams meet for about 10 minutes. They review what's happened yesterday, how many backlogs are there any constraints, are there any challenges, are there any changes to the job to be done, what is planned for today, how much of carry forward of yesterday, replan it and get onto the job. This is what also helps in ironing out any glitches, any challenges the team is facing within the team. I mean, interpersonal skills, somebody is going on leave, somebody is not come to office today, there's a sudden change in the architecture, whatever it is, every constraint has been handled in the daily stand-up meeting. There is also a sprint review once in a week, because like an average sprint is anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks. There's no sprint should go beyond 2 weeks, because it becomes unmanageable. It defeats the purpose of agile methodology. So you need to do a sprint review where you look at what has been developed in terms of functionality, non-functionality, the progress of the project, what has been planned, what has been achieved, and how do you take it forward. Review, or if there are any backlogs, if you have to give any feedback within the team, outside the team, this is the time to give a feedback at the end of every sprint review. The sprint review is a weekly exercise along with the daily stand-up, and this has to happen almost like a religion. Once in 2 weeks, maybe even earlier also, it's better to have what is called a sprint retrospect, where the team gets together and then assess themselves. What went wrong? What went right? Can we do things differently? Is there any fundamental shifts happening in the project, internally and externally? And wherever possible, highlight the good job and address, some of the challenges within the project. So sprint retrospective is a very self-learning mechanism where every team member reflects upon individually as well as a team and looks at all the shortcomings and fills those gaps. And the definition of a sprint is a clearly time-boxed in a period of work, not more than 2 weeks, where there is a clear set of the input criteria and the output criteria. At the end of every sprint, there has to be a deliverable to the client to start being deployed. You cannot have a sprint without any deliverable. You can't say that, at the end of the sprint, I only did a bit of documentation. No, the sprint should have a piece of code or a piece of software which they can start using it and deploying it in the business. I think that is something which you need to ensure and define your sprint accordingly. So along with the, and all these processes and values, there is a bit of mandated documentation also be done. No, it's not that, the entire agile framework is without a documentation. No, there are absolutely minimum documentation required, but those documentations are mission critical and they are bound to happen. You cannot say that I won't do that. That mandated set of documents are of course, the use case diagrams and the use cases and everything which we have spoken about yesterday, that is there. But In the course of the project, you need to have what is called as a product backlog. Very important element. What has happened successfully, you don't need to record. But what is not happened, you need to record for it to be reviewed and analyzed every day during the daily stand-ups and the sprint reviews. The second is the sprint backlog. Not only at the day-to-day backlog, you need to have a backlog at the sprint level because it impacts the overall timeline of the project. If you cannot control the project at a weekly level, it becomes uncontrollable as the project follows into the second week or the third week or the fourth week. All you are doing is accumulating the backlogs and you are not able to solve it. So the backlog documentation is an extremely important documentation, and sometimes it is worth putting a hold on the project, finish out the backlog before it is restarted. And finally, you need to have a documentation of the completeness of the work, which is also called as an increment. And that has to go along with the product being released to the client and say that this entire project is divided into 10 or 12 modules. This is the module number X, which I'm delivering. These are the features being delivered. This is the features being delivered now. This is delivered cumulatively. This is what is left. And it has to follow a certain plan, a certain timeline, certain percentage of completeness. And that document has to go along with every sprint release which goes to the client. So with this, you have a very clear understanding about the entire work breakdown structure, how the project is completely broken down into small, manageable chunks of deliverables. The customer is completely using it. The customer has an opportunity to get back to you for any suggestions, changes, additions, deletions, modifications, and you have enough time to review them and include them or not include them in the project. Maybe I would request the Mindmatrix team to actually initiate some scope changes in the project, so that the team is well equipped and experienced in handling those changes and applying the principles of the Scrum framework, where they can reassess the requirements and start accepting the changes, because accepting changes is an integral part of the values of Agile framework. So not only just one document, forget it and look at it after 16 weeks. I think we use at least 2 changes at the end of the first 4 weeks, second at the end of 8 or 10 weeks, and finally look at the final product. I think that is the entire team to understand the importance of Scrum and the Agile methodology. Next slide, please. So once you have looked at the Scrum framework, we'll get into a bit of a detail on what is called as a user story. The beauty of an Agile development is that the customers are allowed to narrate their business requirement like a storytelling. It's a story. It's a pure English, narrated in your day-to-day language. And whatever has been told verbatim by the client is written down on a whiteboard or just typed it on our document. And interestingly, that becomes your starting point of a development use case. So you have a project requirement document, which is at a very, very business level. But when you start talking to the customers, they'll start giving you in a narrative way. And those narrations are at an atomic level, which can be further broken down into a set of use cases. I'll give an example. Suppose, in your project about an employee performance dashboard, me as a user would say that I want to have a dashboard to see the weekly and the fortnightly performance metrics of all the students or all the employees on these parameters. A simple English, a simple storyline It can be written on the board, but it's up to the requirement and the entire project team to break it down into use cases, the DFDs, the ERDs, the data flow diagrams, and your development project. So the user story lies between the PRD and the use case. The project is described and estimated based on the number of use cases. So when you're doing an estimation, you have to break down the PRD into number of use cases. And before the number of use cases, you have to break it down into user stories. This is where, the value of talking to the customer regularly into user stories is an extremely important element in the success of a Scrum project. This is where I would say that every IT professional or a software developer need to build the skills, not necessarily on the tech skills or the database skills or the cloud skills. You need to have an equally important skills in converting a PRD into user stories. And more importantly, your skill, both listening, speaking, and writing skills in interacting with the customers and recording all the user stories. I think for me, it's one of the most important skills in any software development project lifecycle. Your ability to record the user stories and start delivering the user stories on a sprint is by far one of the most important skill. Of course, the tech skills are equally important. It's a piece of advice to you, to all of you. There are a lot of YouTube videos, short videos of 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute videos on Agile, the Scrum, the user stories. I think I would recommend all of you to go through those videos. There are a lot of freeware training modules and certification modules available in Coursera, Simplilearn, other places. You can take those certifications on Agile methodology. You can be a Scrum Master. You can be even who knows, you can be a product owner also. Get those certifications done and put it as a part of your resume. The equity and the value your resume brings in is more than just the tech skills you are having. Okay. So just take it as a piece of advice and see if it works for you. Okay. So invest heavily in building those soft skills in addition to your hard skills. And the last step in case of the entire Agile product is definition of done. When do you say that your project is done? The project is done only when your every sprint is successfully done. And when you say that every sprint is successfully done, you're able to say that a user story and a set of use cases have been built based on the use cases, the DFDs, the ERDs, and the data flow diagrams, and the UML models. They are well written, they are tested, the requirements are traced back to the PRDs. You have done the unit testing, the integration testing, and the user acceptance testing. And finally, the product is demonstrated and accepted by the owner. The entire cycle happens in one sprint. That is when you can say that particular sprint is done. And you will move on to the next sprint. So I think you follow this process, both letter and spirit, understand the values of Agile methodologies, the Scrum framework, and I'm sure you will become a very effective software developer and build those soft skills around language skills, the listening skills, the communication skills, the documenting skills. I think that makes you a complete professional. Next slide, please. So, in an Agile methodology, all you have is a framework. All you have is a certain values. All you have is a certain steps and the roles to be delivered. how do you integrate them into a very orchestrated symphony? And that happens only by having a visual control on the progress of the project. The project is broken down into various sprints, various deliverables, various milestones, following the principles of Agile. And how do you monitor them? The monitoring is done through a visual tool called as, or a mechanism called as a Kanban. Kanban is a Japanese methodology which is typically used in the automobile industry, where every technician, right from the lowest technician to the manager, gets to see the progress of the a particular product, and everybody gets to see who has done what is in progress, how many reds are there, how many greens are there, how many oranges are there, how many reprioritization is happening. Everything is visible on a visual demonstration of the entire workflow of the project. This is what is called as visual management. In the hierarchical and the waterfall model, this was visible only to the project manager. But in the Agile methodology, everybody gets to see the entire project in a holistic way, and everybody is affected if the project is delayed. And if the project is successful, everybody is successful. So in the scenario of a very harmonious way of working, where everybody gets to see what's happening at a project level, a Kanban board becomes a very important tool. It represents the entire progress of the project, not only at an individual level, but also at the holistic level. Sometimes what happens is, if one of the team members is able to complete the job a bit ahead of time, the person can actually end up taking somebody else's job who is lagging, or maybe the person is on leave, because the whole focus is towards the sprint to be delivered. It's not about who does what. Anybody can pick up any job as long as the larger objective of delivering the sprint is done. If you're able to deliver the sprint by end of Friday, and somebody completes the job ahead or by Wednesday can take up additional job of others and collectively deliver it on time and cost, then the team wins. It's not about individual winning. It's all about the team winning. So Kanban gives you an opportunity to be a great team player and putting the team first before the individuals. So the principles of Kanban are very simple. It's all about work in progress. It's all about visually looking at it. Everybody gets to see. There are visual signals. And it also puts the focus on the flow of the work. The flow has to change. The flow will undergo a change. Everybody is part of that chart. Everybody plays a role in that chart. Interestingly, I'll give a personal example. I got used to this Kanban for the last 20 years. That today even in my day-to-day life, I put stickers on in my office room to look at it every day. Right from watering the plants to going to a shop to doing something. Everything is so planned and written down and stuck on my wall. The first thing is that I don't forget. Second, it is organized. Third is I can reprioritize. The fourth is at the end of the day, I finish all my works today before carrying forward for tomorrow. But if I don't put it, I got so used to doing it. Sometimes, if I forget doing it or don't do it, I will end up messing too many things and forgetting too many things. So Kanban as a visual workflow is not necessarily an IT development workflow or any manufacturing workflow. It can become actually a part of your life, a day-to-day life in managing your everyday life. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? Today everything is part of my calendar, and I don't remember. It's only my calendar which keeps reminding me what should be done, what to be done every day. And within a day, I go to my room and look at it. What are the stick pads I need to stick? What can be taken off will be taken off. What can be added will be added. Some of these life-changing, processes makes everyone a very disciplined professional, both at work as well as at a personal level. So for me, Kanban is not necessarily an IT tool, but also it's a life tool to make it more organized. So I would suggest that individually, for your project, break down your entire project into sprints, break down your entire sprint into day-to-day work, do a daily stand-up, put stick notes at every sprint. What are the most important things to be done? Review it daily and on a weekly basis. And I'm sure your project would be bang on time, quality, cost, and in terms of the overall deliverable. So please practice that actively, rigorously, and I'm sure this is going to be a very important element. And I would also request, the Mind Matrix team to introduce a couple of changes in the, requirements midway, at least 2 changes during the midway, so that, all the change management, the requirements management, readjusting the project, reprioritizing the whole, the deliverables and the sprints, at least the team can learn out of these changes in the project. Next slide, please. So what I've done is, to your benefit, I have, based my own understanding about the project, I've broken down the project, your 16-week project, into 4 sprints. But I would recommend at least 6 to 8 sprints for each one of you. Sprint 1 to sprint 8. Break it down into 1 to 2 weeks logical sprints. And at the end of every sprint, you need to have a deliverable which is functional, which adheres to all the quality standards without compromising on the quality, the functionality, both the functional as well as the non-functional requirements in terms of technology, performance, response time, everything. So, and also, apply the various, the ceremonies like a daily stand-up, the scrum review, the status review, do a peer review with your friend, do a once in a week retrospection, what went right, what went wrong. Can you look things differently? Can you learn, or do you need to learn anything differently? Sometimes what happens is you would have planned for an 8-week, you could have planned for an 8-hour exercise, but you ended up doing it in a 12-hour or a 14-hour exercise. So what went wrong? Why did you take more time than what you have planned yourself? So there is a reflection about your own performance. There is a sort of review of your own domain skills, the technology skills. You have time to learn those skills and come back tomorrow a much better, much skilled professional, and stick to your plan. You cannot afford to slip on the plan in terms of quality, the cost, and the timeline. So use this internship project as a full-blown project, not only to improve your discipline of doing a project, but also build other skills, your technology skills, your communication skills, your writing skills, your planning skills. I think this is a great opportunity to become a better professional out in the market. And I'm sure, you will be the most sought after, resources in the market. So this is how, I have broken down your agile into multiple weeks. Use this as a framework, but build upon it. Build upon it and make it as a part of your day-to-day life during your internship. Yeah, next slide, please. So one important thing which I would suggest and recommend to all of you is, like, I've spoken a lot about daily stand-ups. Okay, I think one set of questions, which are 3 mandated questions, which I found were very important, is every day you need to start your work, say around 8 o'clock. You want to, by 7:30, you should ask these questions. What did I achieve yesterday? Plan versus actual achievement. What worked? What did not work? What are the various challenges I faced during the course of yesterday? What did I learn? So that today I'm going to be absolutely on target in terms of what I have planned, what I want to deliver, what I want to accomplish. Very important question, so that if there are any gaps in your execution in terms of learning, in terms of understanding, in terms of skills, in terms of ability to understand the requirements, you can fix it at a day-to-day level rather than carrying it forward for tomorrow to day after tomorrow. Finally, all you're doing is carrying forward, yesterday's job till today, and you're not able to solve it. So it's not only that you're able to achieve a large complex task by breaking it to smaller tasks, you're able to nip in the bud any challenges, any risks, any constraints at a very atomic level, rather than cumulatively taking it forward to a bigger problem to be solved, and you'll end up spending more time in solving the problem at a later stage than solving on a daily basis. Make it as a habit, make it as daily stand-up, not only for the project but your whole life. See, every day you need to show incremental improvement than yesterday, because we all have an opportunity of tomorrow to be better than yesterday in all aspects of life, both in professional life as well as in the personal life. So daily stand-up for me is an extremely important task everybody should follow religiously. Next slide, please. So just to you know uh, summarize your life as an internship, in this project, I would suggest that every day you spend about 10-15 minutes in creating a sprint plan. Once you define your sprint for that week with a clear-cut understanding about what you need to be done, what you need to build, what you need to deliver, what is the sprint goals you need to achieve, I think your life is well sorted and well laid out in front of you. Have this plan ready. My suggestion is create a detailed sprint plan, get it reviewed by a mentor or a project manager, or do a peer review, baseline it and stick to that. It doesn't take much time to do a sprint plan, not more than maybe initially about half an hour. After that, you actually get used to it. So these are the 5 steps I would recommend to follow for each one of you, and then come up with a sprint plan, not only at a sprint level, but also for an entire project level. So your entire project is driven by an agile methodology, following the principles of agile. Break down the entire project into 6 to 8 sprints, and then every sprint to a day-to-day level. That's how you have a very clear view, and represent that entire view on a Kanban chart. Could be on a piece of paper, could be on a whiteboard, could be on the wall in your house, or there are a lot of tools out in the market like Jira and others, project management tools, which also help you to look at your Kanban boards on a daily basis. So make it as a part of your life, make it as an integral part of your personality, and I'm sure you will do a great job in delivering a great product at the end of an internship, and you would be very well equipped to answer any questions on your software development skills during your interview stage when you're seeking out in the market. Last slide, please. So just to sum it up, this is what we have learned today. We looked upon the agile methodologies, the values, the various the people and the various outcomes compared with the waterfall models and the traditional models. We also looked at the various roles in a project, in terms of the product owner, in terms of Scrum Master, in terms of the developers. We also looked at, the role of user stories between the PRD and the use cases, how a use case can be developed from a set of user stories, and how the customer can play a integral and a continuous role in the progress of the project, not only at a user story level, but also in the entire journey of a sprint to the end of the project. We also looked at Kanban boards, the visual management, the process management, the how visually you can represent the project, and in a way, you can extend that to your personal life as well. Finally, you map your entire 16 weeks of project broken down into at least 8 sprints. I mean, 8 to 10 sprints would be ideal. Anything less than that, don't do it, because sprint no more than 1 to 1.5 weeks. Okay, not more than 10 working days. Break down your entire sprints to day-to-day work. Do a daily stand-up, do a sprint review, do a retrospection. Use it as an opportunity to continuously learn and improve, and make a daily stand-up as a habit, not only at a project level but also at a personal level. You'll become a very, very disciplined professional. Okay, so I think this is pretty much, I would say, the session. I think we are on time. I would take a few questions on the chat box. If not, we can wrap it up. I will share the presentation with all of you. I will leave it with the Mind Matrix team to share it with all of you. Okay. Any few questions for the next couple of minutes, or else we can log off. Yashaswini has a doubt.
Who's saying she has doubt? Yashaswini MJ. Yes, please ask your doubt. Go ahead and please ask your doubt in the chat.
Yeah, I think Adil Khatib is saying, is it possible to switch from agile to other models like a V model or a prototype model? Yes and no. It all depends upon the type of the project. If you are into a brand new product which has no precedence, and you need to have a prototype first and then start building the full-blown project like a new idea, yes, you can do that. Even the prototype development can actually follow an agile methodology. Even the take prototype development itself like a project, and you can do it like an agile. So I think it's more of a process flow rather than a prescriptive flow for a set of projects. Any project you do, it can be broken down and start applying the agile methodology to it. I think that's the best way of looking at and see, can we start, uh, deploying agile in everyday life. As I tell you, it's like living, using, and building. Build as you use and use as you build. Somebody was saying, can we use Kanban without Scrum? Answer is no. You need to have Scrum at least 2 roles in a multi team project. For a single team project, yes, you don't need Scrum because everything is rolled into one. But Kanban is a must. Okay. But if you are having a team of more than 3 people or 4 people or 5 people, you definitely need a Scrum. Yes, please. Another couple of questions.
So there is one more question, like, can we use Kanban without Scrum?
No questions?
There is one more. So there is one question. It says, can we use Kanban without Scrum?
Okay, fair enough. If you have no questions, then thank you very much, team. Roshan asked, in real projects, when things don't go as planned, how do you actually follow agile without getting stuck? You know, things don't go plan only because you don't have a plan. At best, if the entire project is broken down into sprints, the project at best will not go as per the sprint. Right? You put a hold on the sprint, talk to the customer and say, things have gone completely haywire. Either the understanding is wrong, or the technology is wrong, or people just don't know anything about anything. It's better to halt the project at the end of the first sprint itself, rather than somehow dragging the project to the fourth and the fifth and the 10th sprint and realizing, we just can't do it. So I think the smaller the task, the smaller the problem to handle. I think this is where agile methodology helps us to control the project at a very, very atomic level, control the gaps in the project before, multiplying those gaps. So Vijay asked, what's the difference between backlog and in-process tasks? Backlog is something which you have planned for the day, but you cannot complete it, and you have taken it forward for the next day. That is a backlog. Technically, you should not be having backlogs. If you are having backlogs, then every day you are only doing yesterday's work and you are not doing today's work. You cannot do yesterday's work today. If you're doing that, there is a lot of backlog. And try and avoid backlog both at a project level and even at your individual life level. Don't carry forward. There's no tomorrow. All you have is today in front of you. Mohammad Zaid says, is it important to use a modern Kanban framework or a simple to-do task works? Yes, simple to-do task works, but it's better to use a Kanban framework because it's a visual tool and you learn the tool. Because I want you to learn the tool also. Please understand that, this internship project is not just developing an app. That is only, for me, it's only 30% of the job. The remaining 70% of the job is to understand the entire process, agile frameworks, the various tools, the modeling tools, the workflow tools, the visualization tools. Everything is required as a part of your project. You got the point, right? So I would recommend, don't just focus on the web app development, focus on the other elements equally also. And equal marks and weightages should be given to these elements of Agile, Scrum, Kanban, communication skills, your status reporting skills. All these are equally important to be assessed. Okay. Last couple of questions, we can wrap it up. Okay, fair enough then. Thank you very much for your time. All the best and take care. Be a good professional in life. I'm signing off. Good day, guys.
No, no, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for those insightful reports, sir. Yes. And yes, guys, I hope you were able to take some screenshots during the presentation. Yes. Start applying them in your side project right away. Also, yes, also, there are some people, like, I don't know why they are showing thumbs down. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, please mention them in the chat. We will be able to understand and address them. Yeah. The PPT and the templates will be shared with you by tomorrow. Okay. And what you have to do with it and until when the deadlines for that will be shared with you. Okay. Yes. And meanwhile, from your screenshots, you start applying the things in your side project. Okay. And you will be given for the next 4 weeks for the guided project development period. You will be given, two kind of projects. You might be getting either employee performance tracker or expense analyzer. Okay. So, yeah, and even that the project requirement document will be shared with you on the platform tomorrow. You can access that and you can start working on the plan of those projects. Okay. And about Google Cloud Access, respective in the respective channels. Okay, at the appropriate time, we are putting up the messages on Discord. Okay, make sure you attend during those only. Okay, say suppose they are being scheduled in this week and the next week also, guys. Okay, yes, and your slot timing and the link will be posted in your respective Discord channels. Do follow the same. Do follow the same links and same slots. And make sure that you have all filled the Google Forms. Okay. Only those who have filled the Google Forms with both their video registered email IDs and also their personal Gmail IDs only will be getting the access. Yes. Okay. Follow Discord, guys. Follow Discord. Even on the platform, if it is like showing 0%, you don't have to worry about that. Your all data, your progress is safe with us. It will be reflected on your end also. Okay. Yes, it will be reflected as it is on your end also. No, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Yeah. The projects will be assigned by tomorrow. Okay. And also the project requirement documents will be shared with you on the platform. Is it clear, everyone? Yes. Okay, guys. Thank you so much.